90 military targets on Karg Island. That is the number CENTCOM confirmed within the last 24 hours. On the night of March 13th, American forces executed what the Pentagon is calling a large-scale precision strike on Iran's crown jewel in the Persian Gulf. Naval mine storage facilities destroyed, missile bunkers eliminated, multiple military installations leveled, and the Strait of Hormuz remains shut, not reduced, not partially restricted, shut. Tanker traffic has dropped to near zero. Brent crude sits at $103.82 a barrel as of this morning. That is more than 50% higher than it was at the start of the year. If you filled your tank this week in California, you already paid over $5 a gallon. By the time you finish hearing what comes next, you will understand exactly why that number is going higher, what Washington is not telling you about the next 72 hours, and why 3 American aircraft carrier strike groups are now converging on a single choke point that controls 1/5 of the world's oil supply. This war started 16 days ago. On February 28th, under what CENTCOM designated Operation Epic Fury, the United States and Israel launched a joint military offensive against Iran. The first salvo killed Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and multiple senior officials in central Tehran. What followed was the most concentrated American military campaign in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. CENTCOM Commander Admiral Brad Cooper confirmed that as of last week, American forces had struck more than 6,000 targets inside Iran. Over 60 Iranian naval vessels destroyed, 30 confirmed mine layers sunk, an entire class of warships, the Soleimani-class guided missile catamarans, wiped from the map. The IRGC drone carrier Shahid Bagheri, a converted 40,000-ton vessel roughly the size of a World War II aircraft carrier, was struck twice and left burning in the Persian Gulf on March 5th. CENTCOM released the video. That ship represented years of Iranian investment in asymmetric naval warfare. It is now scrap metal. 3 carrier strike groups are now deployed or deploying. The USS Abraham Lincoln operates in the Arabian Sea, with carrier Air Wing 9 embarked. That Air Wing includes F/A, 18E, Super Hornets from the top hatters of Strike Fighter Squadron 14, EA-18G, Growler electronic warfare jets from the Raptors of Helicopter Maritime Strike Squadron 71's parent command at North Island, and E-2D Advanced Hawkeye airborne early warning aircraft from the Wallbangers of VAW-117. Destroyer Squadron 21 rides escort, including the guided missile destroyers USS Spruance, USS Michael Murphy, and USS Frank E. Peterson Jr. The USS Gerald R. Ford transited the Suez Canal on March 5th and now operates in the Red Sea. Its air wing carries 4 squadrons of Super Hornets from Naval Air Station Oceana, including the Tomcatters of VFA-31 and the Black Lions of VFA-213. A third carrier, the USS George H.W. Bush, completed pre-deployment exercises off Virginia on March 6th and is crossing the Atlantic toward the eastern Mediterranean. When it arrives, the United States will have 3 nuclear-powered aircraft carriers within striking range of Iranian territory. That has not happened since 2003, and the trajectory now is more dangerous than it was then. Here is what makes the last 48 hours different from everything that came before. On Thursday, Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, delivered his first public statement since taking power. It was not conciliatory. Reports from Iranian state media indicate he vowed to keep the Strait of Hormuz restricted and to escalate attacks on Gulf states. That statement changed the calculus in Washington. Within hours, American B-2 Spirit stealth bombers were airborne. CENTCOM released footage showing them taking off for what it called long-range fire missions under Operation Epic Fury. The B-2 is not a show-of-force aircraft. It carries 40,000 pounds of precision-guided munitions. It flies at high subsonic speeds and penetrates the most advanced integrated air defense systems on the planet without detection. When B-2s launch, they carry one message. That message arrived on Karg Island Friday night. More than 90 military targets destroyed in a single wave. The strike hit naval mine storage facilities. The the very assets Iran uses to threaten closure of the strait. It hit missile storage bunkers that housed anti-ship weapons, capable of reaching any vessel transiting the Hormuz Passage. And it hit multiple classified military installations that CENTCOM has not yet publicly detailed. President Trump announced the strike on Truth Social, saying American forces had totally obliterated every military target on the island. Then came the warning. Trump stated explicitly that while he chose not to destroy Iran's oil infrastructure on Karg Island, he would immediately reconsider that decision if Iran continues to interfere with free passage through the Strait of Hormuz. That is not diplomatic language. That is an ultimatum with a ticking clock. But Iran is not backing down. And this is where the situation becomes genuinely dangerous. Within hours of the Karg Island strikes, Tehran threatened for the first time to attack infrastructure inside the United Arab Emirates. Iranian officials accused the UAE of allowing American forces to use its ports and docks to stage operations. A fire broke out at Fujairah, the UAE's major oil bunkering hub on the Gulf of Oman, after debris from intercepted drones fell on the facility. UAE air defenses engaged 9 ballistic missiles and 33 drones on Saturday alone. Qatar evacuated parts of central Doha after explosions were heard overhead. Saudi Arabia intercepted 6 ballistic missiles targeting the Al-Kharj governorate. Kuwait reported 3 military personnel injured after drones struck Ahmed al-Jaber Air Base. The U.S. Embassy compound in Baghdad's Green Zone took a direct hit from an Iranian radar-targeted airstrike. And in Israel, multiple Iranian ballistic missile salvos struck central and northern areas, hitting Eilat, Shoham, and Hazor Haglalit. The IDF reported working to improve its early warning systems after 6 separate attack waves. This is not containment. This is regional escalation on multiple fronts simultaneously. Now consider what is happening beneath the surface of the strait itself. U.S. intelligence reports indicate Iran deployed several dozen naval mines in the Strait of Hormuz, using small, fast attack craft operating in swarms. These vessels are difficult to track. Each carries 2 to 3 mines. They range from rudimentary contact mines to sophisticated influence mines that detonate based on a ship's magnetic or acoustic signature. CENTCOM confirmed it destroyed 16 mine layers on March 10th alone. But Navy officials speaking to the Wall Street Journal described the Strait of Hormuz as an Iranian kill box. Defense officials told the Journal that Navy escorts for commercial shipping are not currently feasible because Iran can still attack vessels. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Dan Kane acknowledged this directly, saying American forces have achieved air superiority over vast swaths of Iran and reduced its ballistic missile capability by approximately 90%. But he added a critical qualifier. We've made progress, but Iran still has the capability to harm friendly forces and commercial shipping. That one sentence tells you everything. The world's most powerful navy is positioned across 3 carrier strike groups, has sunk over 60 enemy warships, has struck 6,000 targets in 16 days, and still cannot guarantee safe passage through a waterway 21 miles wide at its narrowest point. That is the definition of asymmetric warfare. Iran does not need a functioning navy. It needs mines, shore-based missiles, fast boats, and the willingness to attack anyone who enters the strait. And it has all 4. The IRGC Navy Chief, Rear Admiral Alireza Tangziri, said on Saturday that the strait has not been militarily closed. His words were precise. He said it is merely under control. Military analysts who follow Iranian doctrine interpret that as deliberate ambiguity. Iran wants the option to claim it is not enforcing a full blockade, while simultaneously making transit so dangerous that no commercial insurer will cover a vessel passing through. That strategy is working. Tanker traffic has dropped to near zero. Over 150 ships anchored outside the strait in the first days of the conflict, waiting. Most have not moved. 7 South Korean tankers carrying up to 2 million barrels of crude oil each were reported effectively stranded. Iraq has already cut production by 1.5 million barrels per day because it is running out of storage. There is nowhere for the oil to go because there are no tankers willing to load it. Now, here is what this means for you. The International Energy Agency confirmed that nearly 20 million barrels per day of crude and product exports are currently disrupted. That represents about 20% of the world's daily oil supply. Brent crude spiked as high as $119.50 a barrel within the last 2 weeks before pulling back. It sits today at roughly $103. The U.S. Energy Information Administration has confirmed that crude oil prices have risen about 50% since the start of the year. J.P. Morgan's head of global commodities research warned that if Gulf countries exhaust their storage capacity, Brent could surge to $120 per barrel. At that price level, Wall Street analysts warn the global economy enters recession territory, and gas prices are already reflecting the pain. California has crossed $5 per gallon. The national average is climbing. Energy Secretary Chris Wright said on March 12th that the Navy may be able to start escorting commercial ships by the end of March. That is 2 more weeks at minimum. 2 weeks in which every barrel not flowing through Hormuz tightens the global market further. 2 weeks in which Iran continues to lay mines, launch drones, and fire missiles at anyone it perceives as supporting the American campaign. Meanwhile, approximately 5,000 additional Marines and sailors are deploying to the Middle East to support operations, according to 3 U.S. officials. The total U.S. casualty count since Operation Epic Fury began stands at 7 killed in action and roughly 140 wounded, 8 of them severely. 6 of the dead were killed when an Iranian one-way attack drone struck a makeshift operations center at a civilian port in Kuwait on March 1st. Another service member died from injuries sustained when Iran attacked Prince Sultan Air Base in Saudi Arabia. 6 more American crew members were killed when a KC-135 refueling aircraft crashed in western Iraq. CENTCOM said that crash was not due to hostile or enemy fire, but the aircraft was supporting active combat operations when it went down. These are the costs. They are mounting, and the White House has offered no timeline for when this ends. The diplomatic picture is equally strained. Trump called on other nations to send warships to help secure the strait. He named China, France, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom. France responded. President Macron announced a defensive escort mission under Operation Aspides, sending 12 ships to the region, including 2 frigates specifically tasked with merchant vessel protection. The Royal Navy deployed HMS Dragon, a Type 45 air defense destroyer, from Portsmouth on March 10th. The G7 agreed on March 11th to explore joint escort operations. But analysts warn that sending naval vessels into the strait without a diplomatic agreement simply exposes very expensive military platforms to very cheap, but potentially very effective projectiles. One analyst put it bluntly: there is no quick military solution to reopening the strait. All Iran needs to do is strike occasionally to keep insurers away. And without insurance, no commercial vessel moves. China is a critical variable. According to regional intelligence assessments, Beijing has been applying intense behind-the-scenes pressure on Tehran because over 45% of Chinese oil transits through the Hormuz route. China publicly pleaded with Iran to keep the strait open. Under that pressure, the IRGC modified its threat, claiming it would only target American, Israeli, and European ships. But that distinction matters little when no insurer will differentiate. If one tanker burns, all tankers stop. Here is the indicator to watch. Trump has linked the safety of Karg Island's oil infrastructure directly to the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz. He said it explicitly. If Iran interferes with free passage, he will strike the oil terminals. Karg Island handles 90% of Iran's crude exports. If those terminals burn, Iran loses its economic lifeline entirely. Tehran knows this. Mojtaba Khamenei's defiant statement suggests he is willing to test that threat. The next 72 hours will answer whether Iran blinks, whether American bombers return to Karg with a different target set, or whether the strait remains an Iranian kill box while oil prices march toward $120. One of those 3 outcomes is coming. None of them is stable, and the clock started the moment those B-2s lifted off.